you're able to sell and show who you are really quickly and succinctly because people don't have time. People aren't spending hours and hours with you. And it just really helped me feel confident that I was putting the right stuff out there instead of kind of just like throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping something stuck.
Hi there, welcome to Theater Life Uncensored, where we peel back the curtain and reveal to you what's really working in today's industry for theater artists just like you. That means you get to hear and learn how to surpass your career goals sooner and enjoy an easier, more peaceful life along the way. I'm your host, Jim Cooney, a New York City-based director choreographer. And I'm also the founder of Amplified Artists, a membership community for theater professionals from performers to producers and everyone in between, helping you create a career and life you love. Friends, if you've ever wanted to expand your skill set, get paid for other things you do, or make the transition from one area of our industry to another, this episode is for you. My guest today is Michael van Doorn, and he wanted to jump from performing to choreography, but he was really nervous about it. He shares how he built up the courage to release his very first piece of choreography and the surprising results that he got. I think this interview is really inspiring because we are often our biggest roadblocks, our fears, doubts, insecurities, imposter syndrome, and whatever else. That's often bigger than the things that are actual hurdles in our career. I often say that this career is hard enough. Why are you making it harder? So the more that we see people who feel like us overcoming their fears and actually succeeding, the more it encourages us to take the risk and do the same. Now, Michael, or Mickey as he goes by casually, he works all over the world, and he shares some really great tips for working overseas if you're interested in that. And I can say, as someone who also works all over the world, that this is such a great bonus to our career. Getting to travel the world while someone else is paying for it and getting to experience the people and the culture and the food, it's just amazing. Most people have to save up money for years so they can travel internationally. And here we are getting paid to do it, and usually while doing a job that we love to do. Before we dive into all that, be sure to hit the subscribe and get notified button so you don't miss a single episode. Also, I have a free gift for you. One of the things I get asked the most about is branding. How do I know my brand? How do I create my brand? How do I make my brand stand out? So I've put together a free guide and worksheet that's a 3-part formula. It's going to help you clarify your brand. And you can download this for free on my website at jimcooney.me/branding. I'll put that link in the description below for you as well. All right, so here we go. Here's my conversation with Michael van Doorn. Hey, Mickey, thank you so much for being here today. I'm really excited to talk to you about all these things you've been up to lately.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, thanks for coming on. I'm just equally as feeling the same gratitude to you. For people who don't know you, I always like to ask, like, how would you describe yourself to someone? Because I think this is something people get nervous about if they're at a party or whatever, like someone doesn't know them or they meet a casting director or whatever, and they say, oh, like, tell me a little bit about yourself. So instead of me, like, just reading a bio, I like to give you the opportunity of, like, how would you introduce yourself to someone and, like, who you are as an artist today?
Yeah, cool. All right. Like right now in my life, I would say that I am a late career performer, early career choreographer. I'm originally from Sydney, Australia. I've kind of lived and worked around the world, and I have currently found home in Brooklyn, New York. And that's, like, in a nutshell, me as a person meets me as an artist right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you literally have worked all over the world. And that's, like, one of the things I want to talk to you about too today, because I think, when I work with international people, they're nervous to come, like, leave their country maybe, or they think it's impossible to go work in another country. But you were in Japan, you worked in London too, right? Yeah. I mean, and now you're in the US. So, like, literally all over the world. So how did you feel like you had to, like, build yourself up to go do that and get the courage to do that? Or, like, did an opportunity just fall in your lap? Or, like, what was your kind of, like, trajectory with all that?
Yeah. I don't know. I was graduating high school, and my first gig out of high school was in Tokyo. And that was more by luck than anything. I booked this job. I knew nothing about it. I was very green, knew nothing about the world of professional theater. And I was like, why not? I'd gotten into university and was like, oh, maybe I want to go study. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to give this some time. Went away. What was meant to be a 6-month contract ended up being 2 years. And that kind of like, I met people from all over the world in that first little moment in my professional career. And that kind of led me, like, so many doors open from that. And I kind of realized so much was possible. So I kind of fell into the first step. And then from there, I started consciously opening doors to like be able to do those things. But yeah, I'm very lucky to have been able to do that, but it's very possible. If people are like, oh, I can't actually make it happen, you're like, it takes a bit of work, but it definitely can happen.
Yeah. I think like that,
Yeah,
like being exposed to people who are doing it is one of the things. And I think a lot of people will go train at a university in a country that they want to work in, but you have to have the money to do that, right? And they will, try to get a job like you did, but then you have to have the luck of getting the job. So like, there's some barrier to entry for some of these things, but nowadays with the internet and with social media, you have exposure to these, situations and people who are doing things all over the world, and like the world has become a smaller place where it doesn't seem so scary to, you know, leave in a way. But there are
definitely.
places for you to build relationships, whether you're using that online, whether you're doing that through like Facebook communities, whether you're in a community like Amplified Artists, like there are places there that you can start to build these relationships and see like, oh, I can do XYZ in another country. And here's the avenue to do that. Um,
Yeah.
so,
100%.
so when you said you went away, where did you go?
Um, I first, um, I first worked at Tokyo Disney Resort. And actually, like, I met friends that I still have now. And that was 17 years ago, I think. And I was really fortunate. I closed out a really wonderful like musical theater review show. And that was kind of where I learned a lot of what I know now.
Mhm.
Um, and then I got the chance to be a part of a new build Disney production. And that was, again, one of my very early gigs. And I got to assist on that, which was really cool. And that, again, I kind of just fell into it. I was in the right place at the right time. And from that, like, I just kind of got a real bug for the creative side of things as well as being on stage. And I was kind of exposed to all of it early on, which was very cool. But like from there, I knew there was definitely still more to learn. And I'd worked with these people that were really incredible. And I actually went back home to Sydney and I went back and trained after I'd worked professionally for a couple of years. Um, and like a big thing that I always drill in is that there's no hard and fast set rules as to how you do this career. Like people might be like, there is these exact steps you need to take.
Right.
No one's steps are the same. And everybody like has their own path. Just like trust, a lot of it is trusting your own gut and knowing that you're doing the right thing. I knew after 2 years I wanted to move into musical theater more, and I knew that meant I needed to train more in my acting and my singing. So I went back and I did that.
Yeah.
But like you learn that on the way, and there'll be different avenues that you take and different paths that you take, whether it's like specifically in theater or things that are outside of theater. And they kind of all, I've seen like really cool things come together for people where they're like, they used to like draw and do art as a hobby and have ended up as like set designers, major shows, doing massive things. And that at the time when they were dancing or when they were performing was a side thing that they just like
Right.
liked doing, fell into the right conversation one time. And
Yeah.
yeah, big things grew from it. So yeah,
Yeah.
that is not having, being open to things, I think is really important, and not being like really strict on like, this is the path to this thing I'm going to achieve.
Right.
Like it's okay to have these goals and have like specific goals and dreams, but being open to that path, kind of almost going anywhere to lead you there. Cause you don't know at the time, the person who
Right.
you met in part, you just don't know that who it's going to be and how it's all into place. So yeah, stay open and never like try to predetermine how that's going to happen,
Yeah. I
which a lot of I don't traveling a lot for work, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, like, it's a business of relationships, and you don't know how one relationship leads to another. Like you said, you don't I mean, there's like jobs that I'll get that like I haven't worked with that person for 20 years, or maybe I've never even worked with that person, but I met them 20 years ago. Like you just don't know when things are going to circle around. And so I think like to your point of listening to your gut, people are so afraid to do that. And it's like your gut is there for a reason. Like it's telling you what to do. And I think that's great advice of like, even if you had this path planned out, and even if like your favorite teacher in the world told you these are the steps you need to do, if your gut is saying something else, listen to that, because there's a reason that you're being drawn to something, or that the universe is like giving you that information, or whatever you want to believe in. But that's good advice. Um, you talked about being at the right place at the right time, and I want to come back to that. But before we do, just to
Yeah.
finish like this international talk, how did you negotiate or navigate like the different visas you would need to work in all these different countries and all over the world, and even now working in America?
Yeah. Oof. It's okay. That anyone who's interested in having like jobs around the world, it's a lot of work on that side. Um, the best advice I could give you is open an Excel sheet and like keep records now of every address you've ever lived at, like formal address for the and every time you've gone in and out of a country. Like if you just have all of that information quite succinctly, like I have my little um document on my laptop that I can go back and refer to, because each country wants a slew of information about you. But that being said, with Japan, it was all through the companies that I worked for. So Tokyo Disney and Universal Studios both organized those visas, which was awesome. For London, for the UK, I organized that myself. But again, it's just being organized, making sure you know that like Australia has a reciprocal 2-year working visa with the UK, and then like same with America has one with Australia the year after you graduate. So a lot of people don't know about it, and it's kind of like do your own research, find out about things. But like if you're a fresh graduate in the US, you can go live and work in Australia for a year, and same vice versa.
Mm.
Which is just kind of like a cool opportunity and experience if you're like keen to get out and travel and see the world. Um, yeah, and then for the US, that was by far the trickiest one. There's a thing called the green card lottery. I applied every year for 10 years. This is a lesson in tenacity. It was the 10th year. Um, I opened the email that every year says your application has been unsuccessful, and was not the stock standard email. And I was like, oh, this is real. And even from that point, it still took I think it took a year and a half from that point to when I actually had a visa and was able to enter the country. It's a lot of work, a big burden of proof with that one. I had to get police
Right.
certificates from everywhere I'd ever lived, every address I'd ever lived, every job I've ever worked.
Yeah.
Best advice, just keep a little bit of documentation and keep it organized in one place, and it will save you weeks and weeks
Yeah.
of stress.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think that's good for people to know that, because this is like in our industry too. You apply or you audition for a job, or you keep having a pitch meeting with the same producer, and you just get no, no, no. But then finally you do get the yes. And it might be 10 times. In your case, it might be 100 times. It might be one time. Like you don't know. But no doesn't always mean, no forever. It just means no, not right now. And I think like to have that determination, if you, again, listening to your gut, if you feel like this is the right thing for you, you just got to keep pursuing that path, and then eventually that will come out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And for sure, even with the green card, that happened at the right place. Like again, that happened at the right time in my life. Like it was meant to happen then and not any time before, even though I tried to make it happen. When it happened, it was really actually meant to happen, and it felt right in the moment, you know?
Well, you have a bigger body of work now that you're bringing, to this, and just the connections you've made. Because I mean, the people that work at Tokyo Disney and work in UK and work all over the world, like they're also Americans. Though those are some of those people, so you're still building relationships that way too, and through
Yeah.
social media, like we are talking about. So I think the more like armed you come with existing relationships and the body of work and stuff, is just going to make it that much easier in any job market, but when you come to the US specifically, like that will really help you.
Yeah. And like, even like further than that, even as a social circle, I had friends here, and that people that don't perform anymore, but that are some of my closest friends to New York. And I'm like, it was just great that I had an instant little circle of people to help. Like, New York's a tough city, and when you're learning it new for the first time, to have people on your side and you're not navigating all by yourself, like just those connections is, I feel like they're almost more useful than the business connections, because you know you've got that like genuine, again, like support network community around you.
Totally. All right. So going back to now what you said about, the right place at the right time, because people
Yeah.
say that, I say that, we all say that phrase, but do you really think it was the right place at the right time? Or did you think that people actually recognized in you, oh, this guy has really creative mind, or like he'd be really good in the room to work with and developing this new show, or he has these skills? Like, do you think people recognize that you were a creative person, in terms of like eventually becoming
Early
a
on,
photographer, but
I
like,
feel like I feel like it's a little from column A, a little from column B. If I'm honest, like I was in one show, I was like hired specifically as a tap dancer, and what they were creating in this new show had a lot of tap in it, and so they needed someone who could do that stuff. But I was also like young and eager and kind of just like willing to go with the flow, which I guess then, like, from a personality point of view, they're like, this guy's gonna just be like here for the workshop process and be okay with things changing and
Mhm.
all of that. That like, because they it is quite a process and it can be quite draining. And so,
Yep.
yes, I guess yes, people saw that in me because I didn't. It's not like I pitched myself for that job. They just asked, "Would you like to come along to these things?" And that relationship stayed great, and it still is great. So many years later, um, ended up actually like coming back and doing the 2.0 revamp of that show 7 years after the fact.
Wow.
And like, that was a really cool thing that like I got asked back to do again. You don't know who you know and when. So I think there's an element of right place, right time, an element of what skills you had and what you brought and who you were and how you worked,
Right.
because those things are always going to be important, but not necessarily with a goal of, I'm going to be this and I want to do this. You just show up and do what you do as you do it. And the more you can just show up as yourself, the better connections you make, in a way that they're going to be the right connections. The people that see you for who you are and like that are going to be the people you're going to want to work with. And there's not going to be like clashing of, because I'm like, I don't think it's bad to clash creatively, but there's not going to be a clash of personalities, and it's not going to be a clash of like, it's going to be a difficult working environment. That is going to feel nice and be a good place to create and like let things evolve.
Right. Yeah. No, I think you don't want to resist, or if you're hitting this wall over and over and over again, but then there's another avenue that seems easy to pursue. It's like, well, maybe I need to listen to this. And like, if all these other people are seeing this in myself, maybe I should be, looking at this. Cause I think it's easy for us to think we come across a certain way, or that people look at us a certain way. And sometimes that's not how people really do think of you. Like sometimes I'll be surprised of like, I just remember like being younger and like an agent saying, "Oh yeah, we talk about you all the time in the office." And I'm like, "You even know who I am?" Like I was just so surprised that like A, they knew who I was, and B, that they were talking about me all the time. And it's like I didn't even know that I was like in that kind of sphere. It's so I think like when you're getting this feedback from people, it's like you want to like listen a little bit and be like, okay, well, if people are seeing that I'm really good in the room, if people are seeing I'm very creative, maybe I do want to look at assisting a choreographer. Maybe I do want to look at dance captaining, or like some of these other ways that, or like you said with your friends who were drawing and now they're like, visually designing sets and things. Like people, people are, if they want to work with you in a certain way, I think being open to that, you could see that your career could blossom in these ways maybe you never thought of.
Yeah. Which again comes back to being open to things.
Yeah.
And if you have the ability to be open to that, then opportunities kind of fall from places you never thought they would, which is a really cool thing.
Yeah. So when I first met you, unless I misunderstood, like what I was understanding at the time was that you had been thinking about transitioning to choreography for quite some time, but
Yeah.
hadn't like officially like put the like the stake in the ground, like, yes, this is what I'm gonna do. Right.
Yeah.
So what was the journey from when you were working at Tokyo and you got that little like kernel of like, oh, well, I'm working on this new show. Maybe this could be something I pursue. Right. What was like that journey like to like you officially saying like, okay, yes, I'm gonna call myself a choreographer.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So, it was a bit of like it was a real journey, and I honestly I still feel tentative, like putting that stamp on it. It's like I'm a choreographer. Um, like it's new and it's a little bit scary and it's exciting all at once. But like, yeah, early on, getting creative opportunities and then like progressing into like dance captain roles, and again, people I guess seeing that in me and seeing more how the looking at a production more as a whole as opposed to my role in the show and how it works. All of that was useful through that time. And then when I always had an idea in my head that I wasn't always going to be on stage. Like there are people who are like, I am going to perform till like everything gives out. And I'm like, I love that. That's never been me. I've always seen things a little differently. And I didn't know, and I still don't exactly know how that's going to manifest for me. Um, but for a long time, and a big part of what I really enjoy doing is like helping artists on their journey. So like and that kind of led me into direction of casting for a little while. And I thought maybe I want to be a part of this process where I can help find, like, match people into these roles and help tell a story from this side of the desk. And it was one of the first things I did when I got to New York. I was really lucky. It was a connection I'd made through working on ships. And I got to intern in a casting office here in New York. And a lot of the time in that office, I was in the room and I was like learning a lot, but I kept seeing the choreographer in the room, like working with people in this, like, it was a different way. It was like
Right.
telling the story in a different way. And it was working with these dancers and getting what they needed out of them in a different way. And I was like in there doing the paperwork side of things, being like, I want to be just a little bit more on the still active moving side of things. I'm like, I had um ants in my pants. I need to keep dancing. And I was like, I saw the choreographer doing their thing, and I was like, you know what? Like, I've always liked creating. I've taught for like a lot of my in between gigs was
Right.
teaching,
Right.
and I was like, well, what does it look like for me to actually try and pursue this? And I was like, I don't know, but why not? Like, give it a go. That feels more like a path I want to pursue than be in an office full time just yet in my life and
Right.
in my career.
Right.
Still feel passionate about that. I'm not going to lie. Still feel passionate about artists and telling stories and that whole process, because that is a fundamental part. And I think there's a lot of room for growth and development to create a better industry through
Yes.
that specific process. But where I am currently, I want to create. And I think I have a like quirky and a bit of like a playful style that not a lot of people have. So I think I've got like something unique to bring. It's scary to say those things still. Like it's scary to be like, I actually think I have a point of view that is worth sharing and as a creative. And I've been lucky even in just the little bits and pieces I've been able to create to be able to like showcase that and feel good about that.
Mhm.
So yeah, um, the path from that like first little kernel of assisting on a
Yeah.
huge build of a multi-million dollar show right through to being in that casting office and seeing that choreographer do their thing kind of led me there. Obviously, then the pandemic hit, 2020 turmoil, who knows what's going on.
Yeah.
And then that was the time when I really got to reflect and be like, okay, this is something I want to do. If you're going to do it now. Like dive in, make the most of it and see what happens.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
I think we all they reflected. I mean, this business is everything moves so fast. You're having to work so hard. You have so many long hours. You don't really get these like months of time where you can just be like, well, what do I really want to do? And like examine that. So I'm glad you took advantage of that. You said it's still scary for you to say these things, that you have a point of view, and so you're scared to call yourself a choreographer. And we this is like something I say to people a lot. It's like the definition of, like in your case, the definition of choreographer is like someone who has created dancing. Like it's literally that simple. Have you created any dancing in your life? You're a choreographer. You don't need a Broadway credit as a choreographer to call yourself a choreographer. We like attach these like statuses to these words. And I remember when I first started directing, I had the same thing. Like, well, everyone knows me as a choreographer. I can't call myself a director. I'm like, but I've directed like 5 shows by this point. When am I going to say I'm a director? So like I've gotten over that now. Like once I kind of had that realization of like, oh, it's just the word, like the definition of the word. And so now like I'm on a mission to help everyone feel comfortable to call themselves, like if you're meeting the definition of the word, you can call yourself that. But
Yeah.
yeah, but for you personally, like why, like what's the fear? Like where's the fear coming from? Or like what's going on?
I don't know. I guess it's just like fear of doing something new, like, and that change. I've always been on stage. And that's always been my go-to. And that's what people know. Like people know me as a performer. And so it's like the fear is,
Yeah.
it's almost like reintroducing yourself after a long time of like, someone and then being like, actually, this like I fundamentally as a person have not changed. What I'm doing creatively has. And that's funny because there's still like, if there's the right project and the right thing that's like screaming at me, yeah, I would still love to be on stage and do it. Like I'm not adverse to that. It's
Right.
just, I'm not going in for everything. I'm not just doing
Right.
that audition hustle grind. I'm quite selective about it. Because if it's going to work out, it's going to work out. But I am a lot more, willing to put the grunt work in as a choreographer right now.
Yeah.
And I like, did that as a dancer and did that as a musical theater performer. So to like get to this stage here, it is scary to be in that phase. It's
Yeah.
new. People don't know you. People, you don't have like, I guess I am lucky because you have those relationships you've built as a performer, which really do form a foundation. But it is seeing who's receptive to that. Cause some people are like, I don't like, some people don't see you in that way and other people do.
Mm.
And like, be like, oh yeah, you would be great at that. And other people be like, "Ah, just that becomes scary because I think it's just more a matter of like you're putting yourself out there again in a brand new way, and yeah, that's always
Yeah.
going to be a little bit scary.
Yeah. Well, I think most people probably like, oh, of course he's choreographing now. Like if they know you and they worked with you and they see the way your mind is and your attention to detail and all these kinds of things, like it's like, of course that's what you're gonna. I think it's we have this worst case scenario, like you said, like people are like, oh, why are they doing that? But I think in general, like most people are happy to see other people succeed, and if like it seems like a logical place for you to go, which it is, given your history, then I think most people would support that. Um, so like I know like when you were about to post your choreography, you got really nervous the night before posting for the
Yeah.
first time. So talk to us about that because you finally got the courage to post it, and then you were really surprised with what the results were. So
Yeah. This was one of my like first moments of really like leaning on the amplified artist community. Because I'd, cr- had created this, piece pre pre-pandemic. It was 2019 when I did it, and I'd filmed it all. I'd like had it all done and ready to go, and I didn't share it anywhere with anything. And it just did not feel like the right. Like it's scary enough at the when there's not massive world events going on. It just felt like the wrong time. It felt like not organic to do that. But then we obviously went through a year and a half of not working a lot. And so like, not only did I like have the like, okay, is now the right time fear with like, is anyone going to watch this? Is anyone going to like this? Yeah. So I was terrified of all those things. Did put it like, I kind of like did one of those, like press the button and like looked away and came back the next day, and not to be like, oh wow, but like I've never had a video on social media, and not that I like am that invested in social media and that side of things. But I've never had it get sucked into the algorithm and came back. And I'm like 24 hours later, almost 2,000 people had seen it. And I was like, oh, that's a full theater worth of people saw my work in a day. And it was like a weird, like, I don't want to say that that was the confidence boost, but I'm like, it was terrifying. And then I did get a boost of confidence from that and be like, yeah, okay. It was like well received and people were like, that's great stuff. Keep it coming. And I was like, oh, okay, I can do this, but
Yeah.
still terrifying. There's still that like element of it going to be scary.
Well, I've been doing it
But
20
yeah,
years and it's still terrifying for me too. Like it's anytime you put your work out there, it's creative, it's subjective. So yeah, I mean that doesn't go away, but I'm glad that you recognize like, oh, I've made myself do it and it wasn't as scary as I thought afterwards. You know, like you got through it, you didn't die. And actually got a really good result. And so that spurs you on.
yeah, for sure. And I mean, like, if I can like dive back into
Yeah.
specifically with the course and how it helped me, um, with Amplified Artists, there's, it helps you get your like digital life in order, I think is the best way to put it. Cause I'm like, there's so much information, like really good information about reels and how to like package yourself online, how to have a website that's like really like hits and is to the point and like you're able to sell and show who you are really quickly and succinctly because people don't have time. People aren't spending hours and
Right.
hours with
Right.
you. Right. And it just really helped me feel confident that I was putting the right stuff out there instead of kind of just like throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping
Right.
something stuck.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. I do think like you only get the, one time to make the first impression. So it's much easier to do things, in a way that's going to behoove you in the beginning than having to go back and like then recalibrate what everyone's thinking about you and like reshape your reputation after the fact. So
100%.
that's awesome. You, so, well, I want to come back to your choreography, but just while we're talking about this, one of the things like besides all this like digital stuff you're talking about, we in Amplified Artists, it's like this idea of like your money, your health, your mental health, your physical health, spiritual health, and like
Yeah.
you're a very like well-rounded person yourself, and very like grounded person, and all these kinds of things. How has like any of that affected the way you make art, like thinking of it from more of like this holistic point of view, or has that just been like a thing that you've been naturally good at, your whole life?
Um, I think that like honestly, like one the biggest part of when you're making art, you have to if you don't share that art, does that art exist other than with yourself? And I think
Right.
the biggest thing in all of that has been the ability to help me share my work and my art, which has been really great. Um, yeah, it's great because like as you like work through, like I mean, I'm still working through it. It's because it's self-led and you take yourself through different courses. There are different points where you're like, oh, I'm like feeling worried about this right now. And there's kind of a resource. You're like, oh, I just paid my rent and I'm not feeling great. You go read the money stuff and like listen to the seminars and you go like, oh, okay. Like, and there's like just again support and something to help you like chill out. Or if you're like spinning out about a callback you didn't hear about or whatever it is, and you go into some of the artistry and be like, it's fine. I shared my like work with people, and if they liked it, they did. If they didn't, they didn't. But like
Hmm.
hearing it, having that like resource there to just reinforce it is great. And then like on the health side, I love that it's very holistic in that it looks at health from all angles. We're not talking just physical health. We're talking mental health and we're talking like health of yourself as a being and knowing how that when you're in a good place there, yeah, you do create better stuff. I find it funny because like a lot of people are really good with like a schedule and routine and they find that that helps them, which I love for them. Um, for me, the best stuff I've ever created has always been like, and again, comes back to being open to letting yourself. I'm like, as creatives, I think you need to be open to the spontaneous night that led you who knows where, that sparked the idea. And like, yes, obviously for the bulk of time, if you can have some routine and keep things regimented, but like, when you get like a little idea and it's 10 p.m. and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden it's 3 a.m., but it's still, and it's not shutting yourself off to that and being like, yes, but my bedtime's 11 p.m. and I
Right.
need to stick to that. It's like rolling with it and having a double shot the next day at work to make it work and be like, okay, like I'm running on like coffee and fumes, but this idea I had last night
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
It's like taking the pieces of what's there in that course has kind of been able to be like, this works for me, this works for me, this works for me.
Yeah.
Other things like you're like, okay, that's great, but like
Right.
I'm gonna do what's always worked for me before.
Yeah.
And like you put that together. And again, there are no rules. So it really helps, I don't know,
Yeah.
bring things together for you as a person. But then you're like, okay, cool. Like
Yeah.
we're creating things.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I always say to people, it's like choose your own adventure because, some people love to just do the coursework on their own. Some people love to come to all the live events and just be interactive in that way. Like, and like every course has different, like you said, like there's gonna be some things that apply to you and some things that don't. And so it's like just knowing that you have like all the information there and you can consume it on your own schedule and whatever. Like that's been my goal. So I'm really glad that to hear that that's helpful.
No, for sure. And it, like there are certain things that are like really useful to people, like setting up an LLC and like a lot of the business money side of things. They're not factoring in like the Australian tax implications of doing those things. So like,
Right.
yeah, I know that I have to like have these extra things and
Right.
like, but there's a solid foundation and there's like
Right.
a lot of like things that are going to help you, but you just like inject where you are personally into that scenario
Yeah.
and you take what you can from it.
Yeah. And one thing I think too, people like if they don't know this already, is like you can leave and come back on your own. Like if you're on a monthly plan, a monthly membership, like you can go away and come back. Because it's not the whole idea is not to like suck you in and like make you like chained to this program. It's like it's there when you need it. And if you don't, like we have lots of people who go off, do a show, then they'll come back, or they want to go work on their own a little bit and come back and your account is exactly as you left it. Like when you pick back up, it's like all of your saved content, all of your favorites, your history, all that stuff is all there, your community profile, everything. Um, so you had done a couple months and then you had left because you're like, okay, I've learned all this great information. I want to go off on my own, like go put my, head down and like get all this stuff going. And then a few months later, you came back and decided to join for a full year. And so
Yeah.
and like many people have done this kind of thing. So I just want people to understand that like that is an option for you that you can go and come back. But what made you decide? I know like you had said to me, like, oh, I really missed having like this team of support. So that's why I'm coming back. So like what was your journey like with that?
Yeah. I mean, it was interesting. Was it summer 2021 that I joined? Yeah. And there was like a 3 month intro
It was like
package.
getting back to
Like,
business. Yeah, because everything was open.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it was great. And I really, and like, I dived in head first. I like
You did.
carved out time for it every day. Um, and I learned a lot quickly and felt really good about things and like had some opportunities kind of come up. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to like follow where this path is leading, which was awesome. And then in true 2021 style, a lot of things just kind of closed, collapsed. Jobs that I had lined up fell through. And I'm not unique in that moment. It'll happen to a lot of people. And I just found myself being like, I felt like I was back at square one and I was like,
Yeah.
oh no, what do I do? And I was like, you know what? Where did I feel really good? And where did I feel like I could like share my thoughts and have a little community around me, as well as like have that support and like learning. But honestly, the biggest part was the little community network of artists that are based around, like, is it just the US or is it
No,
around
there's
the
people
world?
all over. Yeah, it's all over.
Yeah, like, and that's it. It was like knowing that that was there. Um, to me, I was just like, you know what? Like, if I know that that's there, and that's why I signed up for the full year. It's like there are times when I'm gonna be busier and times when I'm got more time to be involved with the course. But I'm like trying to carve out a couple hours a month to be a part of the live calls and stuff. For me, they're so beneficial. I feel like hearing other people going through the same stuff as what you are
Yes.
instantly makes you feel less alone in something that you can feel like I'm the only person going through it.
Yeah.
Um, and then you instantly go like, we are all doing it and we are all struggling through it and we are all, I don't know, find creative solutions. And if you don't find a creative solution, you find like a friend to laugh about it with, as opposed to just getting in your head way too much about it. So I'd say the community aspect of it was the biggest draw card back.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. And knowing that that's growing still now, and
Yeah.
that like the more voices that come and join, the stronger that community gets.
Yeah.
I don't know. I bumped into someone from the golf the other day, which was cool. And I was like, we had a weird moment of like, hey, why do I know? And I'm like, oh, we know each other from online, like
Yeah.
the monthly get together. And I'm like, well, that's like strange, but cool. And that's what New York's like. You bump into people all the time. And then like to know that that's just like a new connection I have in the city. Awesome.
Yeah. Well, and I also like too that inside Amplified Arts, we have people like yourself who are choreographing. We have people who are directors. We have producers, writers, actors. And I say it all the time. It's like we have everyone. Like if you want to put something out there, you have all these
Just
people.
wanted to know if I
Yeah,
can.
yeah. Like
Yeah.
you have this network. So
Yeah.
um,
No, it's really,
okay, cool. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's always good for me to know like how people are responding to things too, because then it helps me keep developing it. And I think also like I also get to appreciate like when you guys are sharing things, it's not just like I'm sitting back like, oh, this is good. It's like, oh, I need to listen to that too. Or like, oh yeah, that helps me too. It's like I'm in the same trenches with everyone else. And so it's like I love getting on those calls as well because I always leave feeling empowered and inspired by what you all are sharing. So it's really good in that way. Um so I want to go back. You said well, first of all, let's finish talking about your choreography, and then I want to go back to something else. So
sure.
you posted your video, you got the 2,000 views. Great, you feel a bit more confident now, not so scared. So from that point forward till today, like what are you doing now, and how has that transitioned, and like what kinds of things are you excited about working on and whatnot?
Yeah. I mean, right now I'm just like, I had an idea. It was one of those, like I had an idea in my head. I was actually out on a gig doing a show. And the cast were all on board with me. And I said, hey, do you want to like help me? And I choreographed a note, like a number on them. Um, and like that has been like the best creative outlet that I've had thus far since then. But it's also helped. I now have this like body of work that when I have been pitching to different people and different things, um, like a lot of my work has been in the theme park cruise ship sphere. And like I'd love to one day create shows for that, because for me it's like got the like a wonderful element of like commercial theater where you've got big budgets to do kind of amazing things. But also knowing like the caliber of artists that you get out there is pretty incredible.
Yeah,
Like that's an avenue I'd love to pursue, but also like then there's another part of me that loves like new work that doesn't have a voice yet, doesn't know what it wants to be, and being able to like
yeah,
place my little choreographer stamp on it and be like, hey, this is my style here, and I think it could tell this story really well. So I don't know, I've got like little ideas brewing, and I'm just kind of forming connections. And I think that's the biggest mind shift that I've had to have from a performer. Is like, performer, dancer, you rock up to your audition. It's this like, please pick me thing. And one of the biggest takeaways I've had from the course, as well as just in general, is like shifting my thinking from please pick me to like, here's what I have to share. And when you're like a choreographer, it's about who you know. It's about like knowing a director. It's about knowing a lighting designer, whoever it's going to be. And like, who knows that one idea that sparks, and you go, how about we work on this? Or we like spend some time on this. Um, and you don't know what it's going to be in the moment. And you don't know if
yeah,
it was just dancing for a few hours and just creating for a few hours, or if it builds into something. But like, I really feel like I'm taking my first step into that world as well, which is cool.
mhm, yeah,
Yeah, which I know like is a lot of what you've done, which is kind of cool to see how like new builds are like their own beast. It's
yeah.
uh, a very cool part of the industry.
Yeah, and I think that you hit the nail on the head with and this is like what I keep trying to help people who are performers with is like you don't need to just audition. There's other ways like your relationships and the opportunities you can create for yourself are probably going to be a faster way to get to what you want than like just hoping that the right show comes along, that your part's not already taken yet, that you're going to be at the right price point for what they want to pay for that perform like you're the right height, the like skin color, hair color, like all the things that they want.
Prepay.
Like that, like it's just so much based on everyone else's desires and not really you. Like you don't get to really curate your career. If you're just showing up for auditions, you're just hoping that someone like that you're the right number that day, right?
Yep.
Whereas if you curate your career and you decide what shows you want to be working on and you lean on your relationships and you put these things together, even as you as a performer, you can talk to a director and say, hey, if you're not busy, I'd love to do like put this scene on tape, or maybe we could like pitch this show. I really would love to play this role. Like maybe we could pitch this to a theater. Like if directors don't have anything lined up, of course they're going to say yes. Like that's you're bringing them an opportunity, right? So
Yeah.
I think that I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm also glad that you had the courage to reach out to the dancers and say, "Hey, can you help me out here?" This is something that for anyone who's watching or listening to this that's a choreographer, I used to get like scared myself of like, why I'm not getting paid for this, so I don't have any money, so I can't really pay them to come in, and I feel like I'm taking advantage of them. What I've learned from just talking to so many dancers about this is like, if they're not doing anything, it's fun for them to be creative. They're getting to build a relationship with you. And then like your work is like, if you're showing this online, then like they're being shown through your content. So it's helping them build out their network. And when you are doing a show that you can hire people, the fact that they have a relationship with you now is going to help them then. So they're eager to work with you as long as like, again, if you're getting paid, yes, you should share the wealth with them. If you don't want to be putting people in like unsafe conditions or asking someone to spend like 24 hours without a break. I mean, like that's kind of crazy, right? But just a normal, like, can we get together and like workshop some stuff? Dancers love to do that. And I think if you are wanting to choreograph or you are a choreographer, like not being afraid to ask dancers to help you because they really do. They are eager. I mean, do you
But yeah, like that
from your experience? Yeah.
100%. But that clear delineation between like, this is a passion project right now, and we're doing this for fun. And if you have other commitments, being open to change and flexible to like, I am like one of the biggest advocates to pay the dancers. Like, you know what I mean? And I'm like being really clear as a choreographer is like, this is a passion project. We are being creative and having fun in this moment. I'm not getting paid. You're not getting paid. Like, but as opposed to if this is a professional gig in any sense of the word, pay the dance.
Yeah.
It's like,
Well, and
has
this
to like
yeah, this
non-negotiable.
is a good since we're on this point, just so we have this platform to talk about it. It's like you even pre-production, they should if they're cast in the show, then they should be getting paid for that. Like that's not really pre-production, that's rehearsal, right? If they're already in the show. So I think like these theaters and sometimes certain choreographers try to get around if they want extra rehearsal time, they call it pre-production. Well, that's really just like you workshopping stuff that shouldn't be with the cast. If it's with the cast, then they should be getting paid for that, right? That's you're workshopping what they're going to be doing already.
Yep. I mean, that a lot of that comes around to and down to if you can muster it. And I find it's one of the strangest and hardest things to have adjusted to in the States is like being a part of a strong union is really important as artists because we're busy being creative. So you want somebody else
Yeah.
out there really looking after you and fighting for you in those ways so that you're not worried about those things.
Right. Yeah, not being afraid to stand up though also because this is something we've talked a lot about in Amplified Artists too of like, well, I don't want to burn a bridge or I don't want to have this bad reputation. I'm like, but if this person's asking you to do something that's unsafe or they're be creating a toxic work environment, do you really want to keep working with them? Like, isn't that a bridge you'd probably be okay to burn? And also, like, they must have a reputation in the industry for acting this way because that's how they're acting. So everyone knows that. So if that person were to badmouth you and say, well, they don't want to I wanted them to be lifting and they'd want a safety check before that and like, well, yeah, of course. Like, so you're the asshole, not this person, right?
Yeah.
So I think,
And even if that might not be clear in the moment,
yeah,
trust me, in time that will become clear.
exactly, right. So just you have to advocate for yourself, and if that person doesn't respect that, then I would question whether you want to keep working for that person because hopefully you want to be in a room where everyone respects everyone and you're there to make the best art possible. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so going back now to what I wanted to ask you, because you'd said this when you were working with casting about opportunities to make our industry better. And so, just from your point of view, doesn't have to be with casting, just performing
Yeah.
choreography, whatever. What, because you have worked all over the world, you've worked through different unions, different work environments, things like that. What, like from your point of view, would make our industry better? Like, what can we be doing to make it better?
I mean, I feel like a lot of the reflecting that happened through 2020, one was like the industry and like taking a really frank look at it, like ripping some curtains back and being like, there's a lot of inequity here that needs to be looked at. I don't think there's one like blanket thing that's gonna solve everything. And I feel like there's there's a multitude of issues and you're not going to be able to solve everything at once, but you are going to be able to start working on all of them at the same time, which is important. I think I think from like a holistic point of view, I think if as long as everybody keeps kindness at the forefront of what they're doing and the interactions that they're having, everyone's going to learn and grow and develop together, and that's going to be great. I think the industry needs to acknowledge that, like, okay, when you're asking people to do really tricky stuff, that's hard on your body, hard on your mind, even like playing certain roles that's going to be going and like delving into trauma every night, whatever it is, like being kind wherever you can in every way that you can is huge. And I think the industry as a whole does not need to have the we can remove some old adages of the ballet teacher with a
Right.
cigarette and a cane,
Right.
and we could remove the angry old director screaming at the performers. Like, there's no place for it, there's no need for it, and like
Right.
we're all here to share our voices. Um, I think like in a little more of a like specific world, yeah, I do think that creating space for everyone's voice is so important. And a lot of that can be done through casting, but making sure that the voices at the top represent what we want the industry to be. And so if that means like some pretty massive changes, being willing to have those frank conversations, those tough conversations,
Mm.
but make the changes. Like there's just no way in 2022 you can look at society as it is and not acknowledge how much theater has benefited off the skills and talents of people, but the profit and the like commercialization of the theater has remained with the like archetype producer.
Yeah.
Um, and so looking at ways to change that and looking at ways to tell more diverse stories, more, I honestly, it's more exciting, it's more interesting, A, and then using that to like utilize the talents of like just a broader scope of people and just kind of breaking norms and not being afraid to,
Right.
and knowing that that's just how things are going to be from now and not look at it, like if anyone, if anyone like mutters the word, like ticks the diversity box or anything like that, like viscerally makes my blood boil. I'm like, absolutely not. We're not there anymore when we should never have been there. And I'm like, as an industry, we have to understand that that's a massive flaw and that there's such room to grow and be better as a whole that like it's going to take everyone. It can't like it can take you as a performer being offered a role you're maybe like, "Oh, I shouldn't be playing this role," knowing in your heart that that's not you and you shouldn't be playing that role, to the like really producers and casting doing, it's going to be a tough road for them. Like I don't envy that position. There's a lot of work that needs to be done there, but it can be done. It absolutely can be done. And artists always lead revolutions.
Mm.
And so knowing that is exciting. And it means you get to be a part of painting this brand new picture of what art looks like around the world on stage and the stories that are being told and the influence that is happening on society in a
Yeah.
much wider scope. So for me, yeah, it's letting all voices in and doing it with kindness.
Yeah. I think it's education too. It's like when
Yeah.
you are like if you look at at least in America, like the universities with their musical theater programs, if you just look at like the people that they accept, and a part of that is also financial, but there are scholarships and things of that nature. but just like for someone to feel comfortable even applying to that university based on seeing what everyone typically looks like that goes there. And this isn't just race; it could just be body type, it could be physical ability, it could be so many things. Um,
Absolutely.
and I think like that's something that we have to keep working on is like opening up education to everyone so that everyone does have the same opportunities from jump and to learn and grow from the very beginning so that you're not just getting cast because you look a certain way, but you actually have the best talent for the role on top of that. Right. Um, so yeah, I think that's good. And I agree with you that like, I think some producers get a bad rap because there are good producers who are doing all the things that you're saying, and those are the kinds of ones that I like to work with. However, I do agree that the people that are really controlling most of the Broadway, and there's only 41 of them, right? So like even that alone, it's like keeping it so exclusive when it's like, I don't even know if that's a really good financial model because like there's people all over
Right.
the world. Why are you trying to bring everyone to you and only have 41 theaters to do it? Like that doesn't seem very smart, right? So it's just like this level of control that like until they like open up the idea that like, well, we could also call Broadway theaters in Chicago and have those be Broadway shows, even though they're not on because I mean, how many shows are actually on Broadway? Right. So it's
Right.
like we're like that's just ridiculous. So we're even using that as like the definition of it or whatever. But yeah, it's I think like you said, like getting rid of these old, you know, archetypes,
Yeah.
like that's the Broadway producer, I think, is one that needs to be expanded of like what is Broadway and like why are we using that as a definition of our industry instead of performing arts or theater or whatever else we want to call it. Like we all resort to that Broadway word. And so it keeps everyone feeling like, well, if I'm not working on Broadway or if the show's not on Broadway, we're going to pay people less. It's going to be less prestige. You're not going to be considered as talent when like I work with the same Broadway people that I do in New York all over the world. It's literally the same people. Why are we getting paid differently? Why is it like changing like the
Yep.
quality, like all these things? So,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
yeah,
And like, I think like to build on that, like even if like from us as creatives, if we're telling different stories and those stories are reaching communities and they're seeing a different
right.
um, story being told on stage, that then obviously there are different barriers and stuff. But opening that up and having that representation means that more of those people go into early education in the arts. Um, and then you really are building that pool of people that can do it, grassroots community, which is where it needs to start. And then from that, then then the university programs are going to expand and like it's where and what can you be doing at each stage that's going to benefit this as a whole. There's
Right.
no band-aid solution to this.
Oh,
It's it's going to take a long time and it's going to take a lot of work.
yeah.
But it's ultimately going to be for the benefit, not just like of theater, but like society as a whole and
Yeah.
like the purpose of art and how it influences people.
Right. Like people shouldn't have to live in New York to see amazing art. And you also shouldn't have to live in New York as an artist. I mean, some of the best performers I've ever worked with were people who chose not to live in New York and they lived in whatever theater, so whatever town that the theater was in that I was working, and they were just a local actor, but they were just as qualified, just as talented. Maybe they had done some Broadway shows and had moved out of New York or whatever it may be, but they were choosing not to live in New York. And so I think like again, like there's this amazing talent all over the world. Why aren't we sharing stories from people all over the world? Why aren't we giving access to that? Like, so
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
for
glad we're on the
sure.
same page about that.
Yeah.
So anyone watching that like wants to start helping make theater outside of New York City, go for it, please do. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, so all right, well, this is there anything else we didn't touch on that you want to share about like your journey to choreography and like what your, your tips for anyone else trying to pursue this? Anything else you want to say?
Like honestly, I feel like actually like one tip I would say, which has helped me a lot, is especially starting out new. And you did mention it before, is like somewhat having your ducks in a row, like having a good body of work to share before you start sharing things. It's okay to like start in your own head, be like I'm creating and I want to be doing this thing. When you start sharing that with people, people will be interested, like hopefully, people are interested and they'll ask for something and like make sure that you've got something there. And so in your downtime or in the time that you're like, just be creating and making sure like the better your body of work is, and that's going to consistently keep evolving and growing. But if you have a good base, something to start with, that's your initial pitch. And that's the thing that's going to kind of like get you a little bit of traction with the human connection you've had with that person. So if you can link your talent with the connection you made with a person, but you actually have something to
Right.
share instead of being like, yeah, I'm a choreographer. I've got nothing for you there. Yeah. It's not as useful. Like, trust me. Um,
Cool.
help them trust you. Yeah. That would be my tip.
That's good. So if people want to learn more about you or find you to connect with you, where should they go? Where's the best place for them to?
Okay. If you want to work with me,
Yeah.
go to michaelvandorncreative.com, and you'll see all my stuff there. And then if you want to just follow along and see what I do in my life, at Michael Stan Van is my Instagram handle.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for sharing all of your like wisdom and your story with us. I think it's really inspiring for people to hear. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Cool, thanks, cute.
Okay. See you later. Bye bye. Mickey is such a great guy, and I'm so glad he shared his thoughts and experiences with us. And I hope that you feel inspired now to take a step forward if you've been holding yourself back in any way. And this goes beyond just transitioning from one area of our industry to another. We put these roadblocks up all the time. But since we are the ones who are putting the roadblocks up, we are also the ones who can take them down. If you've got any questions or want to keep the conversation going, drop me a note in the comments below. I personally respond to each one. And don't forget, you can get my free 3-part branding formula guide and worksheet on my website at jimcooney.me/branding. And I'll put that link in the description below. If you like this episode, hit the like button to help more people find out about it, and also subscribe and get notified so that you don't miss any of these episodes. Remember, there's no one on the planet who's just like you. Stay true to the gifts that you have and who you are. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.